This is how you learn real English, through real emotion. Keep watching and hit subscribe. My name is Nora. I've been married for 7 years. Not perfect years, but real ones. With laughter, hard days, shared bills, morning coffee, and quiet routines that made me feel safe. My husband, Daniel, isn't the romantic type, but he's kind. Solid. The kind of man who keeps his promises, even if he forgets flowers on anniversaries. And I've never doubted him. Not once. Until I met her. Her name is Chloe. At first, I didn't think twice about her. She was polite, well-spoken, maybe a little too warm, but nothing that rang alarm bells. I met her at a local charity event. She walked up to me with a smile and said, "You must be Daniel's wife. He talks about you all the time." I smiled back. That sentence should have made me feel proud. But something in the way she said it felt rehearsed. I brushed it off. I didn't want to be the jealous type. Daniel is mine. I know him. I trust him. But over the next few weeks, I started seeing her more. At the gym. At the grocery store. At the same cafe where Daniel and I go on Saturdays. She was always just passing by. Always smiling. Always acting like we were friends. One afternoon, we ended up sitting at the same table after a neighborhood meeting. She complimented my dress. Asked about my work. Then leaned in and said, "You know, Daniel is so lucky. Men like him don't come around often." That was the first time I felt it. A knot in my stomach. Something wasn't right. But I smiled and nodded, like I didn't notice the way she said his name. Like it didn't linger on her lips too long. Back then, I still thought it was nothing. But I was wrong. It began with little things. The kind of details you wouldn't normally remember, unless something inside you is already on alert. The first time I noticed it, Daniel and I were having dinner at home. Just a regular Tuesday. He smiled at something on his phone. I asked what it was, and he said, "Just something Chloe sent from the event." He showed me a meme, innocent, harmless. But when I looked closer, I saw they had been exchanging messages earlier that day. I didn't say anything. I just nodded. But inside, a voice whispered, "Why is she texting him during work hours? Why is she texting him at all?" Then there was the coffee. Daniel never liked cappuccinos, until Chloe mentioned it was her favorite. Suddenly, he was drinking them almost every morning. He didn't make a big deal about it. But I noticed. I noticed how he smiled when he said, "You know, cappuccinos aren't bad." Like it wasn't just about the coffee. One Saturday, she showed up at our usual cafe. Again. "Didn't know you'd be here," she said with that same perfect smile. But she sat at the table next to ours and stayed the entire time, laughing a little too loud, glancing at Daniel just a little too long. He was polite. He didn't flirt. but he didn't shut it down either. And that silence? That space he didn't protect. That's where the doubt started to grow. I told myself I was imagining things. That maybe I was being insecure, paranoid. But jealousy isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a quiet ache. A tightness in your chest when someone else looks at what's yours like they already see themselves in it. And the worst part? Daniel never noticed. Or maybe he did. And chose to pretend he didn't. I spent days trying to silence the voice in my head. The one that kept asking questions I didn't want answers to. I told myself I was tired. Overthinking. Creating problems where there were none. After all, Daniel had never given me a reason to doubt him. He came home every night. Kissed my forehead. Asked about my day. He wasn't colder. He wasn't distant. If anything, he was normal. And maybe that's what scared me the most. Because something was happening, and he didn't even have to change for me to feel it. I started avoiding Chloe. I skipped the next community event. I stopped replying to her messages. She noticed. One afternoon she called, sounding cheerful as ever. "Is everything okay? Haven't seen you around." I said I'd been busy. She said she missed me. And in that moment, I realized I had never been her friend. I had only been his wife. That night, I sat in the kitchen, staring at Daniel's phone charging on the counter. I didn't touch it. I never had. We weren't that kind of couple. But for the first time, I wanted to. Not because I didn't trust him, because I didn't trust her. Instead, I asked him casually, "Do you think Chloe's a little too friendly sometimes?" He looked up from his plate, confused. "What do you mean?" I shrugged. "Just, she texts you a lot, right?" He smiled. "She texts everyone a lot. That's just how she is." And just like that, the conversation ended. Dismissed. Laughed off. But I wasn't laughing. I went to bed early that night. I turned to face the wall. And when he kissed my shoulder and whispered good night, I pretended to be asleep. Because pretending felt easier than asking the next question, what if she's not just friendly? It was a Sunday. Sunny. Ordinary. The kind of day where nothing dramatic should happen. Daniel had left his phone on the table while he showered. I didn't plan to touch it. I really didn't. But it buzzed. Once. Then again. The screen lit up with her name. Chloe. A preview of the message appeared. Just a few words. But they were enough to freeze me. I wish I could tell you how I really feel. I stared at it. My hands went cold. My body stiff. I could hear the shower running, distant, like it belonged to someone else's life. I picked up the phone. unlocked it, his password was the same as always. I hesitated, then opened the message thread. They weren't lovers. There were no confessions, no photos, no plans to meet in secret. But there was something else. Something more dangerous. Emotional closeness. Late-night messages. Shared jokes. You're the only one who gets it. Compliments she shouldn't say. Responses he shouldn't give. And buried between casual lines, there it was again, subtle, calculated, but undeniable. Flirting. She had feelings for him. That much was clear. And he wasn't stopping her. He wasn't encouraging her either. But he wasn't shutting it down. And that silence? That gray area between loyalty and temptation? That was the betrayal I hadn't expected. I put the phone back. I sat in the kitchen and waited for the water to stop. I felt everything and nothing at once: anger, sadness, confusion. But above all, one question echoed through my chest. Why didn't he tell her to stop? That night, I looked at Daniel across the dinner table, and for the first time in years, I didn't recognize the man in front of me. Not because he had changed, but because I finally saw what I hadn't wanted to see. And now, I couldn't unsee it. I stared at him for days. Watching. Listening. Waiting for something in his behavior to confirm what I already knew. But Daniel didn't act guilty. He wasn't nervous. He still brought home groceries. Still asked if I wanted tea before bed. Still kissed my cheek in the morning. He was the same. And maybe that was the most painful part. Because everything was continuing like normal, except me. Inside, I was unraveling. Every time I looked at him, I heard her words again. I wish I could tell you how I really feel. I imagined them in every room of my mind, laughing, messaging, building something just beneath the surface of my life. He hadn't cheated. Not with his body. But what about his heart? What about his loyalty? What about the boundary he never set? I drafted a message to Chloe more than once. I deleted every version. I imagined confronting Daniel. Screaming. Crying. Demanding answers. But then what? Would he say it meant nothing? Would he defend her? Would he say I was overreacting? One night, as we brushed our teeth side by side, I looked at him in the mirror and wondered if I even wanted the truth, or if I just wanted to feel safe again. And that's when it hit me. I had been choosing silence not because I was calm, but because I was afraid. Afraid that if I opened my mouth, I would never see our marriage the same way again. That once the words left my lips, we'd never be able to return to the quiet comfort we once had. So I stayed silent. That night, and the next. But the silence didn't protect me. It haunted me. Because sometimes, not saying anything, says everything. I didn't confront Chloe. I didn't confront Daniel. At least not the way people expect. No shouting, no tears, no slammed doors. I simply changed the way I looked at them. I stopped pretending I didn't notice. I stopped explaining away the uneasiness in my chest. And in that quiet shift, something inside me hardened. The truth is, I don't know if Daniel ever had feelings for her. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he just liked the attention, the admiration, the feeling of being seen by someone new. But what hurt the most wasn't what he did, it was what he didn't do. He didn't protect what we had. He didn't draw the line. And he didn't see the moment when I started to feel replaceable. I told him one night, calmly, "You should have shut it down." He asked what I meant. I said, "You know exactly what I mean." His silence told me everything I needed to hear. We're still together, for now. But something is different. I'm different. I no longer look at our marriage as unshakable. I no longer ignore the quiet signs. I started going to therapy. For me. To remember who I was before doubt took root in my mind. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe we'll heal. Maybe we won't. But I know one thing. Trust doesn't always break in one loud moment. Sometimes it fades silently. Until one day, it's just gone. So if someone ever looks at your partner the way they shouldn't, and your gut tells you something's wrong, don't ignore it. Speak. Ask. Protect your place. Because silence doesn't save anything. It just gives pain more time to grow. Subscribe and keep improving your English through stories that speak to the heart.